Day 10 of India-Canada Flashpoint.
Agents of the government of India and the killing of a Canadian citizen, Hardeep Singh Nijjar.
Has Justin Trudeau softened stance? After allegations, Trudeau praises India.
I think it's extremely important that all of us continue to engage constructively and seriously with the government of India.
10 days later, still no Nijjar proof.
Canadian security agencies have been actively pursuing credible allegations of a potential link.
Humbled Trudeau, backing away. Top focus on 5 Live.
You're with the news here on India Today with me, Shiv Aroor. This is 5 Live. Let's get you straight to the top stories. It's 10 days since Justin Trudeau made his big allegations against India. But we've got something to be thankful for today. I'm going to tell you that and much more. Thanks for being with me. These are the headlines. Kaveri protests rage on in Karnataka. Protests take place in the second Bandh in the last 5 days. The public suffers as Kannada activists and political parties are out on the streets in a rampage against each other. Big inside scoop on One Nation, One Poll. Sources tell India Today that no simultaneous polls will be held in 2024. Law panel report will be finalized soon. Ripples felt after India Today's Beti Bazaar operation exposes trafficking hotbeds in Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan. Union Minister Meenakshi Lekhi demands police action. Rajasthan Mantri vows an investigation. Actor Vishal makes a sensational charge against the Censor Board of India. Claims he paid 6.5 lakhs rupees in bribes for his film's Hindi rights. Information and Broadcast Ministry promises strict action. This is an India Today impact. Indian shooters lead India's gold rush at the Asian Games. Palak and Isha win gold and silver in the 10-meter air pistol final, while Indian trio clinch gold win in the 50-meter rifle 3-prone event. Viewer, today is 10 days since Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau sought to link the killing of Canadian Khalistani terrorist Hardeep Nijjar to an Indian action. And now, after 10 days of what has been, by all accounts, a global humbling of Trudeau and his supporters, he had this to say at a press conference yesterday. He said, India is a growing economic power and important geopolitical player. And as we presented our Indo-Pacific strategy just last year, we're very serious about building closer ties with India. At the same time, obviously, as a rule of law country, we need to emphasize that India needs to work with Canada to ensure that we get the full facts of this matter, unquote. The matter, of course, he's referring to the allegations that he's leveled. You notice, viewer, a visible softening of Trudeau's stance, a toning down of rhetoric and a decision to stop directly referring to this so-called evidence he has against India, which has opened him to limitless ridicule across the international spectrum for 10 agonizingly long days. It's easy to simplistically see this as a chastised Trudeau falling in line and realizing that it's best to gradually back away from the allegations he leveled 10 days ago. But nothing is ever that simple. There's no backing away from what Trudeau said, viewer. Because while the India-Canada face-off will necessarily have to play itself out, since such things can't be simply brushed under the carpet, Trudeau has actually achieved something much bigger than just this immediate Indo-Canadian acrimony. And this is my view. He's woken up an entire generation of Indians to the much larger and much more insidious reality of how, despite Khalistani sentiment enjoying zero resonance here in India, or indeed by the overwhelming parts of the global Sikh community, the big English-speaking countries, the West, US, Canada, Australia and the UK, continue to not only accommodate Khalistani terrorists, but also actively protect those that preach secessionism from India. In a terrific, thought-provoking column today by one of India's most well-regarded strategic thinkers, Brahma Chelani, he writes today in that column, "Today, by continuing to shield dangerous Khalistani terrorists or extremists, the Anglosphere countries are imperiling Indian interests and security. It is as if some Western governments wish to employ the Khalistan card as political leverage against India. Allowing provocations from the Khalistani diaspora in the Anglosphere to go unchecked could even impinge on the interests of Sikhs in India by affecting the traditionally harmonious Hindu-Sikh relations and close bonds." Chelani goes on to write in this column, "Oddly, in shielding leading Khalistanis, Western intelligence services are implicitly aiding Pakistan's efforts to destabilize India. Pakistan's rogue inter-services intelligence agency, the ISI, has actively aided the Khalistan movement, including facilitating military training," is what Brahma Chelani writes in this column, which I urge everyone to read. The immediate acrimony over Hardeep Nijjar, the allegations over his killing, will take their course. Make no mistake about that. For the moment, India has stood its ground, seeing Trudeau's campaign as an inflection point, an opportunity to affirm and flex India's zero-tolerance foreign policy towards diplomatic slights, especially when they impinge on India's national security. Considering that these same groups have targeted Indian high commissions and consulates throughout this year, whether it is in the UK or Toronto or San Francisco, this is something that has galvanized India against softening its stand. And this, in my view, surprised the Anglosphere, the English-speaking West, catching it off guard even perhaps. A new India waking up to this somewhat well-hidden reality is the true achievement, the true fallout of what Justin Trudeau has actually triggered. Millions of young Indians learning that the aspirational West has this dark hidden layer that harms Indian security. Learning that thus far innocuous Canada does things that result in real violence in Punjab. This is what Justin Trudeau has achieved, viewer. And in my view, we should be thankful even at some level. So I'll end today by saying exactly that. Thank you, Prime Minister Trudeau. Well, after accusing India of being involved in the killing of Hardeep Singh Nijjar 10 days ago, like I said, now the Canadian Prime Minister is striking a visibly softer tone. He hasn't spoken for the last 5 days, and now at a press conference in Ontario, he says he's committed to building closer ties with Delhi. Listen into how it all began and what Trudeau sounds like now.
Over the past number of weeks, Canadian security agencies have been actively pursuing credible allegations of a potential link between agents of the government of India and the killing of a Canadian citizen, Hardeep Singh Nijjar.
The government of India needs to take this matter with the utmost seriousness. We are doing that. We are not looking to provoke or escalate. We are simply laying out the facts as we understand them, and we want to work with the government of India to lay everything clear. It is extremely serious, and it has far-reaching consequences in international law and otherwise.
Millions of Canadians can trace their roots and origins to different countries in the world, some of which do not hold by the same values and rules that we do. And it's important for everyone to feel safe in Canada. That's why keeping Canadians safe is one of our absolute top priorities, why we continue to work closely with security agencies and partners and allies around the world to ensure that the rule of law is respected and citizens are kept safe.
We call upon the government of India to take seriously this matter and to work with us to shed full transparency and ensure accountability and justice in this matter. We are a country of the rule of law. We are going to continue to do the work necessary to keep Canadians safe and to uphold our values and the international rules-based order. That's our focus right now. In regards to India, Canada has shared the credible allegations that I talked about on Monday with India. We did that many weeks ago, and we are there to work constructively with India, and we hope that they engage with us so that we can get to the bottom of this very serious matter.
I think it's extremely important that all of us continue to engage constructively and seriously with the government of India. India is a growing economic power, an important geopolitical player. And as we presented with our Indo-Pacific strategy just last year, we're very serious about building closer ties with India. At the same time, obviously, as a rule of law country, we need to emphasize that India needs to work with Canada to ensure that we get the full facts of this matter.
Days is a long time in any diplomatic battle, but the visible softening of stance of Justin Trudeau tells its own story. The Canadian Prime Minister has said that Canada is still committed to building closer ties with India. What does that mean? At the same time, Trudeau also has hailed the growing importance of India on the global stage. We try and decode it for you. I've just shown you how his tone has visibly changed since September the 19th, over 10 days. Where do things stand now? Take a look at this report.
I think it's extremely important that all of us continue to engage constructively and seriously with the government of India.
Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau climbs down after alleging that Indian agents were involved in the killing of Khalistani terrorist Hardeep Singh Nijjar on Canadian soil, plunging diplomatic ties with India into deep crisis. Trudeau is lowering the temperature. In a fresh statement, Trudeau has said Canada is still committed to building closer ties with India.
I think it's extremely important that all of us continue to engage constructively and seriously with the government of India. India is a growing economic power, an important geopolitical player. And as we presented with our Indo-Pacific strategy just last year, we're very serious about building closer ties with India.
The diplomatic standoff began on September 19 when Trudeau made unsubstantiated charges over the murder of Khalistani terrorist Nijjar, that too inside the Canadian Parliament.
Between agents of the government of India and the killing of a Canadian citizen, Hardeep Singh Nijjar.
Since then, over the course of 10 days, Trudeau has given multiple statements against India, but failed to provide an iota of evidence.
Over the past number of weeks, Canadian security agencies have been actively pursuing credible allegations of a potential link between agents of the government of India and the killing of a Canadian citizen, Hardeep Singh Nijjar.
There are credible reasons to believe that agents of the government of India were involved in the killing of a Canadian on Canadian soil. That is something of the utmost and foundational importance in a country of rule of law, in a world where international rules-based order matters. In regards to India, Canada has shared the credible allegations that I talked about on Monday with India. We did that many weeks ago, and we are there to work constructively with India, and we hope that they engage with us so that we can get to the bottom of this very serious matter.
The softening of Trudeau's stand comes as he faces a backlash from the opposition and even some of his allies in Canada. To add to Trudeau's woes, he has failed to get any solid support from other Western countries.
The only briefings that I've been able to receive from CSIS are what are called open information briefings or open source briefings, which is information that's available to the public doing an internet search, which I find frustrating.
India has rubbished Trudeau's charges of involvement in the murder of Nijjar. The Narendra Modi government, in turn, has put the focus on how Canada has sheltered Khalistani terrorists working against Indian interests. With Anisha Mathur in Surrey, Bureau Report, India Today.
Gaurav Sawant and Geeta Mohan are both with me. They've been tracking this story very closely. Remember, India Today, the only channel reporting from Canada at this point of time as well. Gaurav, we've just seen, we don't have very much to move on except the things that the Canadian Prime Minister has said on 5 occasions since September 19th. There appears to be a visible sort of climb down. There is a softening of stance, even though nothing is visibly changed on the ground or diplomatically. What do you make of Justin Trudeau's latest stance?
So Justin Trudeau does realize he's isolated. Justin Trudeau does realize both within and beyond his borders, people are saying, show us the evidence. If you've made such a huge claim, and that too in the House of Commons, accusing India, and not just made a tall claim, you've also taken action. A top Indian diplomat has been, told to leave Canada. If such hard action has been taken, on the basis of what information, on the basis of what intelligence, on the basis of what evidence, and none of it has been put out in public domain except pressure being mounted either by Canada or through the United States of America, where US also asks India to cooperate. And India has stood very firm on our ground, saying very clearly, show us the evidence. We are willing to look at evidence. Point 1. Point 2, we've given a mountain of evidence on terrorists, extortionists, extremists living in Canada and trying to destabilize India. If you're a strategic partner, as the United States claims to be, or as Canada claims to be, then why is action not being taken on these elements? Or why somebody like a Gurpatwan Singh Pannu able to threaten Hindus in Canada and no action taken against him in a country that claims to be India's strategic partner? So when there's closer scrutiny on Justin Trudeau, he realizes he cannot brazen his way out of this, and for once he may have to just put that evidence out in public domain. That's why perhaps this very furious backpedaling.
Geeta, none of that evidence has presented itself for 10 days. We've seen different credible allegations, credible intelligence, credible reasons. There's a kind of element of ridicule over the words that have been used by Trudeau. But this is a serious matter. For 10 days, nothing has been supplied to the Indian side. Is the Canadian Prime Minister or his team, are they backing away from those allegations? What's the sense you're getting from the Indian government?
Well, firstly, Shiv, the initial intelligence, now we learn, came from America. So there is no backing out of this. What we are learning and we're given to understand now from the latest reports that are coming in, Shiv, is that during the meeting between Jaishankar and Blinken, that Blinken did raise the issue of the killing of Nijjar. That in itself is a huge development because if the initial intelligence was from the American side, and if there was surveillance involved, that surveillance neither can be tabled in Parliament for Canada and nor can it be shared in public or disclosed in public because surveillance is a violation in many ways than one. And therefore, it is only going to be an internal conversation among countries. We again will have to wait, Shiv, for whatever it is that Canada is claiming to be out with what they have. And then for India to respond. India has already rejected all these allegations, saying that there is no Indian intelligence. But if there were elements not Indian within Canada who were involved, then I do not think that India would have a problem in cooperating with investigations. But squarely blaming India or accusing India of being involved is something that India will completely not accept. And it's something that will take down or has really brought the India-Canada ties to a brink. And snapping
Okay.
of ties between the two countries is not a major disadvantage to India as it would be for Canada.
Okay. The ball definitely, by all accounts, in Canada's court since 10 days ago. The allegations came from that side. So we're going to have to wait and watch and see how this unfolds and what that next step is going to be. Gaurav and Geeta, thank you very much for joining me and putting that into perspective. I'm also I have the privilege of being joined now by Brahma Chelani, whose column today I referred to in my opening take on this show. Mr. Chelani, always a pleasure. Thank you for your time and thank you for joining me here on India Today. I wanted to just quote couple of things from your column, Mr. Chelani, because this is perhaps one of the most thought-provoking pieces we've read in 10 days of this current India-Canada flare-up. You talk, Mr. Chelani, of how the shielding of these militants by the English-speaking West can in some ways be seen as a strategic investment by these countries for leverage against India. And therefore, even though the Khalistan issue has virtually no resonance here in India or indeed with the global Sikh population, including in Canada, this is what it actually boils down to, strategic leverage to be used at some point against India, sir.
That is the main concern, because Ottawa appears to have learned no lesson from the 1985 Air India flight bombing. That bombing happened because Trudeau, Justin Trudeau's father, shielded dreaded Sikh terrorists, including the Babar Khalsa chief, who, according to Canadian inquiries, went on to become the mastermind of the Air India flight bombing. So now, in a way, history is repeating itself, and Canada has become the global hub of the Khalistan movement. It's quite apparent that Canada is receiving support from the United States, not just to the political and diplomatic level, but also in terms of intelligence cooperation, and also the US is backing Canada in its diplomatic spat with India. The larger issue is this, that when you make an allegation against a foreign government,
yes,
and if you look at the past record of countries that have alleged the role of foreign agents, they have been first very meticulous in gathering video, audio, or forensic evidence before making any kind of allegation. And second, even when they present video, audio, or forensic evidence, they have refrained from directly linking the foreign agents with the government they represent so as not to preclude the involvement of rogue elements. For example, when the UAE reported the assassination of a Hamas commander in a Dubai hotel in 2010,
yes,
it spent weeks painstakingly collecting a trove of evidence before publicly releasing a very compelling surveillance footage and also the photographs of the identified killers, but without linking them to the Israeli government or to Mossad. That is the way. But here, Trudeau makes an evidence-free allegation and he casts direct blame on the Indian government.
Yeah.
This has never happened before. First, there is no evidence. Not a single arrest has been made in the case. The police and the other investigators are still searching for evidence. So in his rush to reach a conclusion, he stands up in Parliament and makes a damning allegation against another country. And at home, he is facing increasing heat for still not supporting his allegation with any hard facts.
Mr. Chelani, my second question to you would be, given that many of these countries, the United States in particular, see India as a quote-unquote bulwark against, the aggression of China, why would these countries need this kind of strategic leverage against India? Where is India a threat to these countries, sir? Could you explain that?
It's a good question. The paradox is this. At a time when a pro-West tilt is clearly emerging in Indian foreign policy, these Anglosphere countries seem to be using these Khalistanis that they shelter and shield as potential leverage against India. The long-standing US foreign policy has been to seek a balance of power and to balance any emerging power.
Yes.
That's been the long-standing policy. It has nothing to do with, with the emergence of any country in recent years. So by using, let's say, the Khalistanis as leverage, it becomes a powerful tool in their hands. Even if they are playing into the hands of Pakistan, whose agenda clearly is to destabilize India.
Yeah.
And the ISI agency of Pakistan is clearly financing and providing other aid to the Khalistan movement, including providing military training. Nijjar was an ISI-trained terrorist who went on to set up his own training camp near Mission in British Columbia.
Correct.
So, unintentionally, by shielding these dreaded terrorists, these Anglosphere intelligence agencies are implicitly aiding and abetting Pakistan's agenda against India.
Which brings me to my final question, Mr. Chelani, is, now the big picture. Your column, educates many of us about this strategic leverage that these countries have, even at a time when, India is an emerging power in the region and the world, etc. We've just seen the G20 happen as well. My final question to you would then be, sir, how does all of this end? Is this going to be some kind of an inflection point as far as all of these countries protecting wanted terrorists by India? We do know the immediate acrimony between India and Canada will have to play itself out diplomatically. But the larger issue that you raise, do you believe that something will change given the attention that's now being paid to it?
First, Shiv, this has been a long-standing problem.
Yes.
It goes back to the early 1980s. This problem, far from easing, has only accentuated with Canada now becoming the global epicenter of the Khalistan movement and people like Pannu operating freely out of American and Canadian territories. The question we need to ask ourselves, how is it that important countries that talk about a rules-based order allow dreaded extremists who openly endorse violence as a tool to achieve Khalistan to operate with impunity from their soil? Obviously, there is an unholy nexus between such terrorists and certain intelligence or security agencies.
Yeah.
So the question really is about the Indian government's willpower.
Yeah, yeah.
We have in India, we have a short memory. For example, in March, when Khalistanis stormed the Indian High Commission in London, remember the outrage in India?
Yes.
Then there were these calls that India should freeze negotiations over a free trade agreement with Britain. But within a couple of months, we were again becoming pally with the Brits. Our talks with the Brits on an FTA are proceeding, and in fact, when Prime Minister Rishi Sunak came here, he received a big hug from Prime Minister Modi. So 6 months down the road, would the government of India will it still be putting pressure on the Canadian government? That's a question basically that we Indians need to debate domestically, because as long as India is unable to sustain pressure on these countries who have been for decades now sheltering and shielding terrorists and extremists from India, using them as leverage against India, and the kind of horrendous attacks that have happened in the past from their territories. I mentioned the Air India bombing, but there was even a murder of an Indian diplomat in Birmingham in the UK. Imagine if a Western diplomat gets murdered by extremists that India shields.
Yes.
What would be the reaction? Or if India were to shield separatists from Quebec, gun-toting separatists from Canada who engage overtly in anti-Canada activities from Indian territory and espouse violence against the Canadian state, how would the Western world react? No, but for last 40 years or so, India has put up with such activity on Western soil. By Western soil, I mean on the soil of these 5 Anglosphere countries. This can only end if India uses its leverage. India has trade, political, and diplomatic leverage. India sends students to all these countries in a major way. The universities in these Anglosphere countries depend on Indian students for their financial sustenance. Indian brains are very critical to the technological base of these countries.
Absolutely.
India is contributing to innovation in these countries. India has leverage, but the question that India needs to ask itself is that this may be an inflection point.
Right.
But is India willing to keep them under pressure? They should be asked to start cleaning up their act at home.
Absolutely.
In their own interest, but also because this is detrimental to India's core security.
Absolutely. This is something that we're going to keep our focus on, because this story is certainly not over. I'm going to end on that very sober note. Mr. Chelani, always a pleasure. Thank you very much for being with India Today and taking our questions. I urge all of our viewers to read Brahma Chelani's column in Open Magazine. It's out there. It's across social media as well. Very, very thought-provoking and provides a perspective on how there are bigger things than just this immediate face-off between India and Canada. It's a bigger issue that India needs to think about. Shortage of memory, perhaps shortage of strategic stamina has in the past meant that these things simply evaporate after a few weeks. Could this be an inflection point? We'll have to wait and see. Brahma Chelani, thank you very much for being with me here on India Today. Thank you. And on the other side of this short break, Bangladesh joins India to drop many truth bombs on Canada. This time, it goes right to the highest levels, a big world exclusive with the Bangladeshi foreign minister. You won't believe what he's told India today. That comes up next.
You are watching India Today, powered by Finest, Be Sustainable Change, a B&P Group company.
India's longest serving editor, a pioneer in India's media landscape, pathbreaker and model for the entire profession, honored with IMA's Managing India Lifetime Achievement for contribution to media.
I believe journalism is a noble profession, for it carries a social responsibility.
Arun Puri has certainly made a huge impact on the lives of a whole lot of people in this country.
I've grown up reading India Today, so I can tell you that Arun's commitment to storytelling, his media excellence, has truly been inspiring for me.
His life's work is India's gold standard of journalism.
पहली चीज़ तो मैं ये क्लियर कर दूं कि आम आदमी पार्टी इंडिया अलायंस के प्रति कमिटेड है और आम आदमी पार्टी बिल्कुल किसी भी हालत में इंडिया अलायंस से अलग नहीं होगा और अलायंस के धर्म को निभाने के लिए हम पूरी तरह से कटिबद्ध हैं। कल मैंने सुना था कि नशे की वजह से किसी पर्टिकुलर नेता या किसी पर्टिकुलर व्यक्ति को पंजाब पुलिस ने गिरफ्तार किया था। मेरे पास डिटेल्स नहीं है, डिटेल्स के लिए आपको पंजाब पुलिस से बात करनी पड़ेगी। दे कैन ओनली प्रोवाइड यू द डिटेल्स ऑफ द केस, व्हाई ही वाज अरेस्टेड एटसेट्रा। बट द गवर्नमेंट इन पंजाब, भगवंत मान गवर्नमेंट इज़ कमिटेड, आम आदमी पार्टी गवर्नमेंट इज़ कमिटेड टू जो नशा है, नशे को ख़त्म करने के लिए हम बिल्कुल कमिटेड है, क्योंकि नशे ने हमारे युवाओं को, पूरी एक पीढ़ी को बर्बाद कर दिया है। जिस स्केल के ऊपर नशा है आप इमेजिन भी नहीं कर सकते। तो उसके खिलाफ एक जो जंग छिड़ी हुई है उस जंग में फिर कोई कितना भी बड़ा आदमी हो, कितना भी छोटा आदमी हो, उसे फिर बख्शा नहीं जाएगा। लेकिन मैं किसी भी इंडिविजुअल केस और किसी भी इंडिविजुअल के ऊपर टिप्पणी नहीं करना चाहूँगा, बिकॉज डिटेल्स मेरे पास नहीं है। डिटेल्स के लिए आपको पंजाब पुलिस से बात करनी।
Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices. Amplify your brand with 100 million smart internet viewers. To advertise, mail us at sales@aajtak.com. You are watching India Today, powered by Finest, Be Sustainable Change, a BNP Group company.
At the epicenter of the India-Canada diplomatic storm, India Today outside the Gurudwara in Surrey, in Canada's British Columbia province, where Hardeep Singh Nijjar, designated as a terrorist by India, was shot dead by two men in hoodie sweatshirts on June 18th. India Today, the first Indian media to reach this location for authentic ground reporting. Contrary to Canadian news reports, we found that Khalistani flags and posters targeting Indian diplomats have not been removed from the Gurudwara building.
On the very other side of the Gurudwara gates, a poster very clearly calling for the assassination of Indian diplomats still very much outside the Gurudwara. While they may have removed a couple of the posters, the rest very clearly still exist right here.
Surrey's Guru Nanak Singh Gurudwara, Nijjar led the administration of this sacred site from 2019 until his death on June 18th.
The Canadian law is very clear that while you can protest, while you can ask for a referendum, calling for violence or incitement of hatred against a particular group of people, an identified group of people, is not allowed under Canadian law.
Canada pointed fingers at India for the murder that took place outside the Surrey Gurudwara. India has rejected the accusations from the word go.
The Indian media and the Indian government, as well as the Canadian government, must ask, why are these posters calling for assassination of Indian diplomats still up in the Gurudwara at Surrey, right here behind me? Anisha Mathur bringing you the reports from the ground from Surrey, BC for India Today.
Hello everyone, this is Anita Brito in conversation with the one and only Shyam Kaushal. Hello sir, कैसे हो आप?
हेलो नमस्कार जी।
अभी भी आप कंटिन्यू कर रहे हो और आपके बहुत अच्छे अच्छे लाइनअप्स है, जैसे आपने बोला डंकी है, फिर आपके पास जो बंगाली मूवी है वो भी है,
ये बंगला बंधु। हाँ जी,
प्लीज उसके बारे में थोड़ा इन डेप्थ बात कीजिए, थोड़ा डंकी के बारे में हमें बात कीजिए। इट्स एन ऑल एंड आउट एक्शन फिल्म?
नो, इट इज नॉट ए, देयर इज एक्शन इन इट।
बट मुझे ये जानना है आपसे, ये पर्सनल क्वेश्चन है, आपको सबसे ज्यादा कौन से एक्टर के साथ काम करके मजा आया, मुझे ये बताइए।
मैंने अमित जी के साथ काम किया, अमित जी से लेके सभी के साथ जितने भी आगे ना सभी के साथ काम किया। फिर जो साउथ के भी मोस्टली सुपरस्टार्स उनके साथ भी काम किया, पर आज तक भगवान की दुआ से कभी किसी के साथ इशू नहीं हुआ, कभी कुछ नहीं हुआ, सबसे प्यार ही मिला है। तो मेरा एक मानना होता है, जैसा मैं आज भी ओपनली बोलता हूँ कि पिछले मैं 43 साल में मेरे को कोई बुरा आदमी नहीं मिला, तो मैं कभी सोचता नहीं हूँ कि अगर कुछ कमियां होंगी तो मेरे में होंगी। कोई बुरा आदमी नहीं है, कोई भी ऐसा। जब मैं एक्टर्स, मेरे जो छोटे हैं जैसा रणबीर सिंह, रणबीर कपूर, अर्जुन कपूर, उन्होंने मेरे साथ शुरू किया, जब भी मिलते पैर छूते हैं, ऐसा बच्चों की तरह। तो आप अगर उनको प्यार देते हो तो आपको सामने से प्यार मिलेगा ही।
A small suburb of Vancouver in Western Canada is the place where the gurudwara is located, outside which terrorist Hardeep Singh Nijjar was killed 3 months ago. His death has triggered a huge diplomatic deadlock between India and Canada. And now India Today is the first and only channel to reach and report from outside that gurudwara in Surrey, where terrorist Nijjar was shot at 50 times on the 18th of June. We not only found pro-Khalistan posters and flags back up on that gurudwara after recently being taken down. This is a place where Canadian intelligence and authorities completely bungled an investigation that they now seek to pin on India. Watch this world exclusive by India Today's Anisha Mathur.
At the epicenter of the India-Canada diplomatic storm, India Today outside the Gurudwara in Surrey, in Canada's British Columbia province, where Hardeep Singh Nijjar, designated as a terrorist by India, was shot dead by 2 men in hoodie sweatshirts on June 18th. India Today, the first Indian media to reach this location for authentic ground reporting. Contrary to Canadian news reports, we found that Khalistani flags and posters targeting Indian diplomats have not been removed from the Gurudwara building.
On the very other side of the Gurudwara gates, a poster very clearly calling for the assassination of Indian diplomats still very much outside the Gurudwara. While they may have removed a couple of the posters, the rest very clearly still exist right here.
Surrey's Guru Nanak Singh Gurudwara, Nijjar led the administration of this sacred site from 2019 until his death on June 18th.
The Canadian law is very clear that while you can protest, while you can ask for a referendum, calling for violence or incitement of hatred against a particular group of people, an identified group of people, is not allowed under Canadian law.
Canada pointed fingers at India for the murder that took place outside the Surrey Gurudwara. India has rejected the accusations from the word go.
The Indian media and the Indian government, as well as the Canadian government, must ask, why are these posters calling for assassination of Indian diplomats still up in the Gurudwara at Surrey, right here behind me? Anisha Mathur bringing you the reports from the ground from Surrey, BC for India Today.
And it isn't just Indian fugitives and terrorists who are being protected with citizenship in Canada. Bangladesh becomes the latest country to step forward, support India and point a finger directly at Canada. And for Bangladesh, it's an even bigger kind of fugitive that is being protected by Canada for the last 25 years. The army officer who went rogue and assassinated their founder, President Mujibur Rahman. Listen to this exclusive interview by the Bangladeshi Foreign Minister to India Today's Geeta Mohan.
Let's begin with the India-Canada row. How do you look at this entire row between India and Canada over wanted men who in India who have been killed in Canada? Canada alleges that there is Indian involvement. India has rejected those allegations. Where do you see this? How do you see the row in itself, with visas being suspended, ties almost on a breakdown?
You see, we have very good relationship, rock solid relation in India. And also we have good relation with Canada. Both countries are friends. Now, I don't know the detail of this issue between India and Canada, but I know that, we have a problem with Canada. And that's about, we have one of the killers of our father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. You see, his killer is having a good life in Canada. He has been there, and we have been requesting Canadian government to send back that self-confessed killer of Bangabandhu, our father of the nation. But unfortunately, the Canada is not listening to us. They have come up with varieties of excuses. So we also went to the Canadian court to understand what is his status, because he's staying in Canada for a long time, and we want to know whether he's a Canadian citizen or not. So we started a case in the Canadian court, and Canadian, the honorable judges made a, verdict. They said that Canadian government has no reason not to disclose his status, but yet Canadian government is not telling us anything, neither sending. Only thing they tell us that they have a law that any individual, if he's sent back to his own country, and if there is a capital punishment in that country, then as per that law, they cannot serve that individual. So we are saying that Canada must not be. Canada is a government to rule of law. They believe in legal system. Canada must not be hub of all the murderers. The murderers, they can go to Canada and take shelter, and they can have wonderful life. While those who he killed and their relatives, they are suffering. So we have been asking Canadian government to deport that Noor Chaudhary. They know it, but unfortunately, currently they don't even talk to us on this issue.
Right, so for the benefit of our viewers, let's just talk about Noor Chaudhary's case. Noor Chaudhary, Rashid Chaudhary, two people who had escaped after killing the father of the nation of Bangladesh, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, fled. One fled to the United States of America, the other to Canada. Noor Chaudhary is the one who is in Canada. He's now currently in his 70s. But in terms of the conversations, around 2019, there was some hope that the Canadians were listening and there could be some resolution. That did not really happen. Is capital punishment the only reason why you think Canada is not extraditing, or is there reluctance that you see within Canada in sending back these people who are wanted in other countries, be it India or, for that matter, Bangladesh?
Yeah, so once you had one and you send it to Bangladesh, we got it. But the problem is with Canada, they have one after another excuses, and that's what is not understandable. They have their law, but law must not protect a killer. Law must not protect, these bad guys. But unfortunately, Canada is doing it. Now, let me tell you, it is very unfortunate when our father of the nation was killed in 1975. Then we had military government one after the other. And those military government not only rewarded these killers, they posted them in foreign missions and in good jobs. So they lived there, and then they also, the military government passed a law that you cannot sue the killers. So the family members, they cannot sue the killers, the murderers. But it took almost 21 years for the family members, particularly our current Prime Minister, who is the eldest daughter of Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. She had to fight for 21 years to come to power, to change that indemnity, this, Waghas indemnity, very criminal in once that was been repealed, only then we started the due process of law. We have gone through a due process, and those guys who are the killers of our father of the nation, they have been convicted by the highest court in Bangladesh. And we have submitted all the details to the Canadian government that the process was fair, judicious, and it followed all the procedures, and they had the right to defend themselves. But unfortunately, these killers took the shelter in Canada. And I hope Canada, and we have two killers now, right now. One is sheltered in Canada, Noor Chaudhary. Other one is Rashid Chaudhary. These two killers are living good life, although their family is still suffering.
Right, you're right. In 2009, the Supreme Court of Bangladesh sentenced 11 convicts to death. 5 were hanged. But these are the ones who are still living a good life, like you said. What is the status of his citizenship? Is he a citizen of Canada? Why is Canada protecting him? Because he just went on a visitor's visa and has been extending that. Canada has not accorded him refugee status. So what's the status of Noor Chaudhary, and why aren't they really sending him back? Is it just capital punishment?
We don't know the status of Noor Chaudhary. To find out the status, we submitted a case to the Canadian court, and it took a couple of years. After that, Canadian judges, honorable judges, gave a verdict, and they said the Canadian government is under no obligation not to disclose the status of Noor Chaudhary. And since then, we have been requesting the Canadian government to tell us his status. Till now, the Canadian government has been refusing to disclose the status, in spite of the fact that their own court made the judgment.
Could there be a change, sir?
But in case of, let me tell you, in case of Rashid Chaudhary, who is in USA, that's much clearer. Rashid Chaudhary got the US asylum citizenship by submitting all false documents. And since he submitted all false documents, in USA there is a rule that if you get immigration by submitting all the false documents, then your case can be reviewed. So US government, we submitted a request to the US government that Rashid Chaudhary submitted all the false, he's a murderer. So the US government has been reviewing his case. Right now, it is with the Attorney General office in USA, but it's taking too much time for the review. But we hope that the US government will review it and will deport him to Bangladesh, as they did. They did. US government sent another murderer, Mohiuddin, a few years ago, when they found out that he was a murderer, and therefore they sent him to Bangladesh. And we hope that the Rashid Chaudhary, who is also staying in USA, the US government will deport this guy to face justice.
Right, sir. Is there room for the death sentence to be changed to life sentence for him to be extradited? And will Canada then agree with Bangladesh
Our judiciary is very independent, and government cannot intervene in there. But he has a scope for life sentence. If he comes back to Bangladesh, both Noor Chaudhary and Rashid Chaudhary, they come back to Bangladesh, they can ask for a mercy petition to the president of the country. And president may, grant the mercy petition and can change from execution to life sentence. That president has that prerogative.
In such a scenario, right, sir.
Pardon?
Go ahead.
Yeah, they have that privilege to do it. Canadian government knows about it. We told them that he has still one more option. If he come back and then he submit a mercy petition to the president, president may allow him life sentence instead of execution.
Thanks for watching 5 Live. I'll see you at the same time next week, 6 p.m. Prime with Akshita comes up next. The Kaveri protest raging on in Karnataka and Tamil Nadu. The politicians are fighting. The India Alliance allies are bickering. But it's the public that's suffering. Full ground reports with Akshita coming up next.
You are watching India Today. Powered by Finest, Be Sustainable Change, a BNP Group company.
First question that I want to ask all of you is that with this letter that you're sending to the consulate, with the meeting that you were trying to get with the consulate, what are you hoping for that the consulate will do or the Indian government will do?
हम ये सोचकर मेमोरेंडम देने के लिए आए हैं कि कॉन्सलेट जनरल और मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ फॉरेन अफेयर हिंदुस्तान की वो इस पर दोबारा विचार करें जो इन्होंने पाबंदी लगाई है। सभी लोगों को परेशान करना बिल्कुल ठीक नहीं है। अगर उनका कंसर्न किसी स्पेसिफिक बात पर है तो उसके लिए वो एक्शन ले सकते हैं, लें, लेकिन सभी लोगों को परेशान करना, पहले 2-3 साल जो कोरोना काल में निकल गए, सभी लोग बहुत परेशान हुए। आप समझ सकते हैं कि कितनी महंगी टिकट खरीद कर लोग दोबारा उनकी दी हुई टिकट खरीद कर यहाँ पर पहुँचा, और वही सिचुएशन अब क्रिएट होने वाली है, लोगों को साफ दिखाई दे रहा है।
सर ढेरी साहब, आपसे मैं ये पूछना चाहूँगी कि इस समय आप लोग बात कर रहे हैं, कॉन्सुलेट से बात करना चाहते हैं कि इंडियन गवर्नमेंट वापस वीज़ाज को अलाउ करे। इंडिया और कनाडा के बीच इस समय जो जिस तरह से रिलेशनशिप को हम देख रहे हैं, और ख़ास तौर से इस समय जैसे आपके शहर में सरी में भी जिस तरह से माहौल है, उसका क्या असर पड़ रहा है जनरल पब्लिक पे? बिकॉज हम ये देख रहे हैं, हम मीडिया में बार बार आ रहा है, आपके यहाँ के लोकल मीडिया में भी आ रहा है, और हम भी इसी वजह से पूरा इंडिया से आए हैं ये देखने के लिए कि क्या हो रहा है, हो क्या रहा है एग्जैक्टली सरी में इस मुद्दे पर।
देखो, दोनों देशों के जो डिप्लोमेटिक संबंध थे वो अच्छे थे, और इंटरनेशनल तौर पे देशों की संधि भी हुई है, जो एक दूसरे देश के क्रिमिनल्स हो वो एक दूसरे को दिए जाते हैं। यहाँ एक की हत्या हुई है, किसी की हत्या होना गलत बात है, हम इंडिविजुअल कत्ल के हकों में नहीं है, मगर उस बात को थ्रू प्रॉपर चैनल करना वो अच्छा रहता है। अगर किसी को ब्लेम करना वो दुखता है। इसलिए दोनों देशों की जो डिप्लोमेटिक संबंध है वो बनने चाहिए दोबारा, और जो बातें हुई है दोनों के बीच में उस फैसले को दोबारा गौर से सोचना चाहिए, ताकि जो आम लोग हैं उनको तंगी हो रही है, क्योंकि लोग सारे जो हैं वो इश्यूज में इन्वॉल्व नहीं होते हैं। तो जनरल लोग जो हैं, जो जाने आने से रुके हुए हैं, और इकोनॉमी का दोनों देशों पे फर्क पड़ रहा है और अमन खराब हो रहा है, इसको जल्दी से जल्दी दोनों गवर्नमेंटों को बैठ के हल करना चाहिए।
You are watching India Today, powered by Finest, Be Sustainable Change, a BNP Group company.
Amul is all set to open a new 2 million litre per day dairy in Rajkot. The FMCG brand, India's largest, is also planning a huge expansion into the organic space. Speaking to Business Today TV's Chetan Bhutani on the sidelines of the Vibrant Gujarat Summit, Jayant Mehta, MD of the Gujarat Cooperative Milk Marketing Federation, also revealed what the dairy Goliath has in store for festive season.
Gujarat has seen a very vibrant growth over the last several decades thanks to this Vibrant Gujarat event.
And to just put the perspective in numbers, in the year 2002-03, when this event started, GCF, the Gujarat Milk Marketing Federation, Amul brand turnover was about 2,400 crores. Today, GCF has grown 25 times in 20 years, and our balance sheet turnover is 55,000 crores, and Amul brand turnover is 72,000 crores, making it the largest FMCG brand in the country. So the growth of Gujarat, growth of Amul has been synonymous, and it is true, the credit goes to all the 3.6 million farmers across 18,600 villages of Gujarat, and primarily the women who have been driving this growth with potential and opportunity, and making us a formidable force in the country, and possibly a powerhouse or a dairy to the world.
So the Prime Minister also pointed out on the implementation of the policy. You know, you have your farmers there, everything is good, but the MOUs are signed, but once not implemented, has no use of it, sir. So tell us about what new the state of Gujarat has done over the period of years, so that the policy implementation part, as a businessman, as an industrialist, what difference have you seen over the years?
You know, we are actually seeing the walking of the talk. Because we are in every village of Gujarat. We have districts and unions and the dairy plants in every district of the state. And the expansion plan, the rapid increase in milk from just 3-4 million litres a day to now 30 million litres a day, is all happened right in front of our eyes. And with the team, both from the government, the policy makers, the ministries, and of course our...
You are watching India Today. Powered by Finest, Be Sustainable Change, a BNP Group company.
Co-powered by Blender's Pride Glassware, My Life, My Pride. Volkswagen,